Hello, beautiful people, and welcome to the HumanizeHer podcast. I'm your host, Erica Lockheimer, and I couldn't be more excited to be with you today. This is truly a movement and also a passion project of mine to celebrate women's voices, their stories, their endeavors, their challenges, all of it. We are going to have so much fun together learning about all of them. Let's do this and dive in. Joining us today is the remarkable Amy Wong, founder of Always on Purpose. Amy is an executive leadership coach, author, and speaker who has worked with some of the most influential organizations and individuals, including Salesforce, PWC, Berkshire Hathaway, LinkedIn, and universities like Stanford and Berkeley. My co-host Elizabeth and I have had the privilege of experiencing Amy's transformative workshops firsthand, and we've witnessed the profound impact of her work. Amy draws upon a diverse range of disciplines and practices, integrating them into a unique approach that focuses on three key lenses: self, relationships, and results. Her book, Living on Purpose, was honored with the 2022 Book of the Year award by the Magic Pen. Get ready to gain valuable insights and practical tools that can enhance both your professional and personal life. Let's dive in. Amy, oh my goodness, it is like just warming just having you here in this room, because it's been how many years since... I know you have a connection. I have a connection. I'm trying to think the last time I saw you. 2018. Okay, so like
2019.
Okay,
yeah.
but stayed connected.
Yeah, yeah.
Online.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So I have a story about how I met you for the first time. I was working at LinkedIn and they had a coaching session. Like, hey, why don't you learn how to do public speaking and get coached? And, you know, you're just busy entirely, not having a ton of time in your day. I'm like, I don't need that. Okay, I decided to go say yes and go to your session. And boy, geez, did I need it. And I learned so much during, I think it was a 3-day session. It was intense. It wasn't just one day. Yeah. So, and we're going to get into some of those tools.
Fun.
So speaking of that, you've been in my head.
Because
I'm literally listening to your book. It is so good.
Oh,
and so we have the Living on Purpose. That's right here on our coffee table here. And there's so many questions, because here you're a coach for public speaking. You do coaching one-on-one. Actually, you're also coaching a close friend, a friend of ours as well, Daisy.
Yes.
You're just doing a tremendous amount of different things. And you also wrote this book, and I'm listening to this book, and you have this thing on living on purpose. And I want to talk about what it is, because you talk about the feeling and figuring it out.
Yes.
And it's something that has been resonating with me, just going through my transition in my career of like 30 years in tech, transitioning into something completely different and wanting to say, hey, I should go to that next corporate level job or whatever it is, or that expectation. And I'm trying to literally figure it out, which is exactly what you talk about. And you make a twist on that. And so I want you to share with us on what that is. Sure. So I'm hoping that it could be a tool for us and our
the
folks.
community.
Yeah.
Absolutely. So we'll work backwards, because I'll tell you what the tool is and maybe how it came to be. But, you know, I kind of went through a breakdown it was 2008, and just everything came crashing down. And through the breakdown came a breakthrough. And everything that I had done, everything that I had studied, everything I was passionate about, everything that I was and am, all came together and culminated into this massive epiphany. I call it a divine download. I mean, I don't know what else to call it, because it was so profound. And in the moment of the lowest of my lows, I was really confronting who I was, right? And this was just to kind of set up the context here. I had just had my first child. And so Aiden, he's now 16, which is crazy.
Wow.
I know. But, you know, there's nothing like having a kid to slap you up in the face and be like, do you think you know who you are? You know? And so as a result of all of the, you know, it's called identity paralysis, right? In cognitive neuroscience. But I had this huge awakening and what I heard was, Amy, you're going about this thing called life all wrong. It's not about figuring it out. It's about feeling it out. Now on the surface,
so great.
on the surface, like that seems to make sense, but there's such a deep wisdom in this. And so what this points to, what not many of us talk about, is that when you take a step back and you look at all of the goals that you might have, all of the things that you want, all the things you aspire to, and you really stop and you ask why, it becomes pretty clear that everything we want in the world, everything we think we want, it's not for the thing or the number or the title or the house or the location or even for the relationship. Everything we want is because we think it's going to make us feel a certain way. And so on every end of a desire is a desired feeling state, but we're not taught to get in touch with that. And we're not even taught to ask, what do you want to feel? We're taught to ask, what do you want to do?
What do you want to want?
What do you want to achieve? Right. And so I have this hypothesis that it's because of our educational system, how we develop as humans in society, in culture, that we get trained away from that because we place our guidance in the system outside of us. Get good grades so that you can get into a good college, so that you can get a good job, so that then you can make lots of money and then be happy. Right. And so we set aside this internal guidance that we have and we just start chasing the thing. And the thing is a proxy to what we actually want to feel, but we're not really in touch with the ultimate map. And so we just start chasing the thing and the thing and the thing and the thing. And so what happens is we get all the highs and the lows from chasing the thing, but then we end up at a point in our life where our life looks great on paper, but you feel hollow. And you're like, okay, well, maybe it's in the next thing. And so there's this false thinking that, okay, if I just get the next job, or if I get the next promotion, or I get, or I start my own company, then I'll feel fulfilled. But that's just false thinking, because what it all comes down to is that we've placed our happiness in this figuring it out paradigm, chasing stuff, forgetting that really what we want is a feeling. And so instead of, and it's so funny because like we do this all the time, like, oh, I need to figure this out. Oh, that sounds right to me. Oh, this seems to make sense. And so we'll choose things that are logical, and that's fine. But if we really want to live the path of purpose and fulfillment and meaning, we have to really listen for what feels right, what feels expansive. This feels energizing. This feels relieving. This feels alive. This feels good. Now, for most of us, if we really listen to that, we can tell because the energy is more in our body, right? And it's more expansive than constrictive. And if the energy's up here, chances are I'm figuring it out. But if I listen for this, it's often the illogical choice that makes no sense. Sometimes it's the unsexy choice, right? So my ego's like, I want to do that, right? and so you there's this quandary, and where it's like, okay, well, is this going to work if I do this? And it's scary. But what I have found, because I've been practicing this since 2008, and it's now 2024. It is the short path of least resistance to the most abundance. It's magical. I mean, when you really listen, when I really listen, I mean, it's a world of synchronicities and delight and joy and abundance. And it's fun. It's fun.
So I was going to ask you like how you actually do that, but so you're saying pay attention to the feeling here rather than here. Can you give some examples of like 100%. How you went from here to there? I guess, is it almost like your gut, your stomach, like feeling like what is
your gut?
Yeah, like is that what it is?
Yes.
I'm trying to understand how you describe it.
So first, I noticed how I was talking to myself, right? And I can tell if I'm figuring it out. Especially like if I'm looking up and I'm saying things like, oh, this, if I can figure, like, oh, this makes sense. This sounds right. This sounds logical. So just the words I'm using often will point to, like, as if I'm doing this, like, oh, I don't know, this feels off. This feels right. This feels versus this sounds. This feels versus this seems, right? And so I can tell just by, sometimes, not all the time, by the language I use. But then what I'm also sensing and feeling into is the energy more up here and frenetic and excited, because I'll tell you, there have been some dilemmas on my plate that, oh man, so much energy, so much excitement, so much glamour and glitz, that all parts of me wanted to say, oh yeah, I'm feeling it out. And it's this option. But I knew, like, and I'm like, this is I'm figuring it out, because if I do this, then it leads to this. And it's like I I call it a so that reality. I'm doing this, so that, so that, so that, versus just because, right? It's not a medium to something else, but it's just because. And if I'm doing this just because, it always pans out. But if I do it in order to get somewhere else, it's not that it doesn't work out. It's just the return isn't nearly as delicious as it could be if I do it this way. So the words I use. Also, I'm sensing for either is it expansive or is it constrictive? It's something I think a lot about, you know, in the world of physics or astrophysics, or even just the nature of the universe. Like there's this principle of expansion and contraction. And you look around us, it's everywhere, right? So there's dark, there's night, and then there's day, there's death, and there's birth, there's up, there's down, it's just the cycle of expansion and contraction. And I believe that's how even the universe expands, right? So it's like, is it expansive? Then I must choose it. Is it constrictive? Then I'm going to hold back, even if it sounds like it makes sense.
Because your gut's telling you this doesn't feel right.
Bingo. And so that's what put me on this path, because I was in the tech industry myself.
Yes.
Right. I had studied math. I was, like did all things
crazy logical and everything.
Complete. This what makes us so wild. Having been a mathematician who's now like, I only operate off inspiration. It's like
the math isn't that thing.
I know, and that's why I'm learning in this moment about what you're saying with feeling. It's like that is the function here. Is
oh my gosh.
The feeling, and just putting enough weight on that is
and
just
trust.
And trust. I mean that is a big deal to do. And you talk about gut, and I think about gut. Gut is also, in some ways, many years of experience also that's coming through that feeling too. Do you feel like that's part of that?
And I feel like I'm going to be always getting better at this because I'm making my best guesses, and it's hard. There sometimes it's obvious, and then sometimes it's a test. And so I just went through an experience last year, and the consequence was huge. Happy to share it.
Yes,
please do.
You kind of have
That's
to
why
now.
we're here. We want all the good stories.
Yeah, please.
Okay. All right. Where do I start? Okay. So massive breakthrough, 2010, and because I follow this, I like in my closet, I immediately have this breakthrough moment, and I'm like, okay, from this point forward, I'm only going to do what feels expansive, starting now. And so it was that choice 2, which is, there is no way things should be, and so like, I just got rid of should. I'm like, there is no should. So I'm just going to do what feels right. And so very quickly, coaching found me. Now I have my master's in transpersonal psychology, having no clue what I was going to do with it. Wow. I just knew I had to study it, right? So coaching found me, and it took off. And so 2011, I founded Always on Purpose. And year after year, business growth was insane, all the way up until 2019. And that's when I knew, okay, it's time to get this book out in the world. And so, again, synchronicities, magic, flow. And that's the thing, when you follow your feeling, you're just delighted by the synchronicity and the flow. Flow, synchronicity. And my dear, dear friend and mentor, who I'm going to give her a shout out right now, Christine Carlson, who co-wrote Don't Sweat the Small Stuff. We are thick as thieves. Love the woman. And she mentored me, and she helped birth this book into the world. And so I'm at her place in Shasta and mapped it all out. I'm working with her editor. I'm so excited. The book's going to be amazing. This is going to be great. And so she says to me, okay, so what's your plan to get it out in the world? And I'm like, oh, easy. Like, all the clients I work with, workshops I do, the conferences I speak at, like, I'm going to give it out to all the people that are in my orbit that I work with, because that's why I wrote it. She's like, yeah, cool. And social media? And I'm like, no, that is so not. I like LinkedIn. Let's be clear. I like LinkedIn because that's how I stay in touch with my clients.
That's good. I helped build it.
Yeah, I know.
And she's still there. So did some of these other people.
I like LinkedIn because it's not sticky, and it's not ruining our children's mental lives, right? So anyway, I'm like, yeah, I don't spend time there. And so God bless the woman. And she meant it in a totally different way than I heard it, but she got right in my face, and she goes, if you are not prepared to be on social media, do not be an author. And she was pointing her finger at me. And I'm like,
well, you better listen.
And I'm like, this woman is like my everything. She has an empire and
Wow.
she's so successful. And so what did I do? I'm like, you know the way. You're an author. I'm not. And that was the pivotal moment for me was I've never been an author before. And so of course I'm going to listen to the experts. Of course I'm going to listen to those that are attempting to, she had what she meant was she meant it in a totally different way than I heard it. But what I heard was, okay, I got to go do this social media thing. And so here's what happened. I'm on this path doing this. And I completely went from feeling it out to figuring it out for the next 3 years. But I was convincing myself that I was here because, between this social media manager and this social media manager, what feels better? And so, but then the publisher's like, well, you need this PR plan and you need this marketing. And I don't even know what half of that stuff meant. And I'm like, okay, I'll do what you tell me. Yeah. Even though it didn't feel at all right, but it sounded like it made so much sense. Okay, you ready for this?
Yeah.
It wasn't until the end of this last year, I'm now, because I felt into and synchronicity led me to this social media manager that told me all the right thing. I wonder if it was a scam because anyway, 18
It probably
grand,
was.
18 grand in.
It sounds like 18 grand.
And I'm about to lose it. And only because I'm an expert in conversational intelligence, I managed to be so partnered with her. I actually got the investment back. But it was this wake up call and I was like, wait, stop. And I saw for the past 3 years, I have been off track and I totaled it up. Do you know how much I've spent? $300,000 on marketing efforts, social media efforts, PR. And here's the worst part, not one penny of return.
Wow.
All the books I've sold have been because of the work that I do. And so when I saw, but I saw it so clearly. And so this is where I say expensive lesson, but man, so valuable because I feel like I'm that much richer in being able to discern, this is the benefit, this is the cost, this is where it is, that's what, got it.
So now you pay attention when you have that feeling. Because even when you were just telling this story about her saying you have to go on social media, I could feel you were like, constricted.
I would totally go straight to like, I need to figure it out. I even on our setting, I'm like, I need to understand how these tools are.
Totally. Yeah. And so, Chris is just the best. I told her this. She was like, oh my God, I'm so sorry.
Oh, you told her?
Yeah, we had lunch not long ago. And I'm
Do
like,
you know you got me off track
honestly,
for 3 years and paid $300,000?
But here's the thing. I'm like, the money, like, I see it as a very crucial lesson that I needed that has gotten me even more in touch that this actually is right. Because here's the worst part. Near the end of last year and in the beginning of this year when I had like a big wake-up call, it was very painful. The worst part of what I was contending with was, what if I'm all wrong about this feeling it out stuff? And it was this existential, you might as well just kill me now because if this isn't this, what was working for the past 10 years, now you might as well kill me now. And so I was like, okay, money, whatever, that'll come back, painful, but you've just taken the rug out from under me on how I think this thing called life works. And so that was the most painful. And to have gone through this and now even more emphatically and viscerally and powerfully, profoundly know that it's true. It's like, so I told Chris, I was like, I wouldn't go back and change any of this. Maybe a little less investment, but like, I am so grateful. So grateful. Yeah.
And this is such a different approach.
Oh,
I'm just thinking about all the coaching I personally have or you had in career or even there, that a feeling approach is just different. And so I'm just curious how, whether it's one-on-one coaching or when you go into a corporate company or corporate environment, are you applying the same principles? And is it hard to get those folks to believe that this is a good approach and a new approach? Because it's different. It's very different.
Sure. So the answer is yes, but the way in which I might introduce or bring it to the table, or it's wildly unique, dependent upon the context. But I think what I got going for me is because I was a mathematician, I'm a master at logic. And so everything that it's like, if I can't work it out like a math proof myself, then I'm not going to offer it. And so, when I share with people, I'm like, look, all these goals you have, sure, it's for the stuff, but really it's because of how you want to feel.
Mm-hmm.
There's not one person that goes, nope, you're wrong. Everybody goes, wait, you're right.
Mm.
And then we kind of just map it back to, well, like, and then let's just take a look at, like, you could go the long path and use this intermediary called thing and figure out your way to potential fulfillment, or you could just go straight to the feeling and see what emerges in terms of new thoughts, new possibilities. And so, you know, to be fair, when I work in corporations, it's not that they bring me in directly to speak to this. It comes in relative to the work that we're doing around, you know, how to be like the best leader imaginable, all things communication and conversational intelligence, because there is this big, you know, feeling aspect to it, right? So it's definitely coming in, but I kind of have to be a little artful.
Yeah. Strategic.
Strategic. But really, I'm feeling into what is the path of least resistance for this individual or this team or this company that's going to get them to what they ultimately want. And so it might be a direct conversation like we're having here. Might be a little more subtle.
What kind of impact have you seen those type of conversations, having that approach in you know, those companies? Or I mean, we can also go to one-on-one, but what kind of outcomes, like, do you have examples of where you've seen that transition happen?
Yeah, absolutely. Okay. You know, where, you know, it might start with an executive leader of a team or a senior leader. We start to do this work. Everything about their approach changes, right? And so now they're highly conscious instead of unconscious. I guess that's the best way to put it. They're deliberate and on purpose versus reactive. And as a result, there's a lot more creative bandwidth, emotional bandwidth, intellectual bandwidth. They're more grounded. They're less stressed, less reactive, more creative. And that inspires all of their team. And then and then it's like, well, we kind of need everybody else on board. So we kind of go through the work to get everybody else on board. Now you get a lot more done in a less time and way less drama. Because the thing about the magic of, you know, this as a foundation, it's freedom, right? Freedom in so many ways, different shapes and form. Yeah.
Wow. I like freedom. I don't think we all want to be free a little bit.
Yes. That's what I stand
those
for.
feelings. No, it's good.
That's what I stand for.
Wow.
Love it. On the personal front too, I'm just curious because I had one of my former bosses had given me this idea in my head. He's like, you're always chasing the bright, shiny object, but no one ever takes a moment to sit in it. So people are inevitably going to get stuck in this path, what you're saying. You're going the long route. You're chasing the things for a moment. Unless you can really perfect that craft of feeling your feeling and following your feeling, you're still going to be chasing those things every once in a while. But I think another thing to note is it's a problem if you don't sit with it and celebrate that you reached that milestone. Because like you said, there's always the next and the next and the next and the next. And people are not taking a moment to just like soak it in that you accomplished that thing that you were wanting and that feeling you were wanting. Feel it while you're there.
But I do wonder if it's because you weren't chasing
the
thing. You were chasing that thing again and you didn't get that feeling because you just got that next thing, like that next house or that next promotion. It's like, why do I still feel like crap?
That just
it didn't actually fix it.
My mind
but
just
no, that's true. Because I think now that's the thing.
Yeah.
Well, this actually runs real deep. You want to go a little deeper?
Yeah.
Let's go way down.
So it's funny.
I'm gonna feel it to my toes. Is that a good thing if it goes all the way from here to there?
Well, this just feels so relevant because on the way over here, I rarely get to chat with my bestie on the phone because our schedules are crazy. And it just so happened we were connecting, and she was like, "Okay, I got a reading for my birthday," and this reader, this psychic, was like, "I swear to God, she was schizophrenic. Like she was all over the place." But she told me, she's like, "I need more self-love," and she goes, "So I need to ask you, like, how do you define self-love?" And so we had this long, big conversation about self-love, and I bring it up because in addition to this, what we're talking about, chasing thing, I just, in all the conversations I've had with so many people, from interns to college students to recovering addicts to, you know, every kind of professional or non-professional, and all the way to, you know, CEOs of Fortune 50 companies, right? We all fall into this, what I call the proving paradigm. And the proving paradigm is we are on this mission to prove ourselves safe and worthy. And it's all of us. And it all maps back to the neuroscience of rejection. And so something was discovered in 2003, I wish we were talking more about, which just blows my mind that we're not. But when you understand deeply the neurobiology of rejection and how we're really motivated, what happens, it's so fascinating. Like all of us are wired to avoid rejection like we avoid the plague. Non-consciously, more so consciously. And that's what drives our fears. That's what drives our desires. I mean, if you just reflect, like, why do you do what you do? Right? It's like, oh, because I need some sort of acceptance. Right? And why do you fear what you fear? Well, I don't want that judgment. Right? And so in the kind of the bigger answer of this is that when we, because of this, and because of how we develop as humans, we are programmed to avoid rejection. And so we take on false limiting beliefs early in our life. Like, I'm not good enough. I'm not smart enough. I'm not, you name it, as a way to understand and make sense of the pain of rejection. Because the thing about rejection, it registers as physical pain in the brain, right? And because the brain is like, I don't want this, it's going to imprint false limiting beliefs, because it's like, okay, well, if you decide you're not good enough because of that thing that just happened, because your mom just dropped you off at daycare, like, okay, you must not be good enough. So now if you decide that, then now you can protect yourself from it, because if you get found out as not good enough, you're going to get rejected, you're going to die, right? So all this is true for all of us. And it doesn't matter how successful we are. All of us have these false limiting beliefs, not so much in the conscious mind, but running, and which has us in this proving paradigm, because in order to prove ourselves safe from being found out is not good enough, then we need to go get the thing, get the accolades, and the next thing, and the next thing, and the next thing, and the next thing. And so that model of proving really fits perfectly into this figuring it out modality. And so you kind of got this extra fuel on top of this patterned, conditioned way of like, here's how I navigate life. I'm going to figure it out. I'm going to figure it out and figure it out while I'm trying to prove myself safe, prove myself safe, prove myself safe, prove myself worthy. Yeah. So
it's so hard because there's also people that put value on those things that you're trying to figure out that is associated with that. And so it's like, how do you undo, almost you're talking really about undoing a lot of systems that have been in place. This is how the world works in so many ways. So how do you undo that in that thinking? And people have a different perspective of what, okay, you are worthy because you got that promotion. You are important because and they put people up on pedestals, and then they get that next opportunity. And I've seen it in the corporate world. Well, sorry, whoever's out there, that idiot that's in that position should not be there. They should not be leading. But then they get more and more and more. And it is systemic, and it just keeps on feeding itself sometimes.
Oh, it is. So that's why I do the work, because I'm on a mission to bring people back home to themselves. Yeah. Because on the flip side of these false limiting beliefs, and the flip side of living in this belief paradigm, because it's all about belief, which is a proving paradigm, is a knowing paradigm. Now, what is true is that you are unconditionally whole and complete, unconditionally already, right? But we've forgotten that. And that's why we love toddlers. Toddlers know this. If you look at little toddlers, they're free. Because they know themselves as whole and complete. They don't think of themselves as not good enough.
They have an untainted view of the world.
Bingo.
Yeah. It's beautiful.
And so, it's helping people realize that we're trapped in a paradigm, not really of our choosing and no one's fault. It's just how things are, and there's nothing wrong. I mean, like, I don't push against or blame the system. This is just what is.
Yeah, what it is. Yeah.
But here's the opportunity, is to come back home to yourself. And how we do that is first coming to terms with, okay, wait, hold on. I was born whole and complete and worthy and good enough. And at some point in my young years, I decided I wasn't, in order to make sense of the pain of that rejection, fine. But now I've been living this. Okay, well, you know what? I'm just going to come back to that truth. But here's the secret: unconditionally. That's what knowing is about. Knowing versus believing. That's the difference. And so that's what I stand for, is that freedom from false perception. And really, it's about coming back home to ourselves. And so that's why I had to write the book, to support all the work I was doing with my clients. And then the work on communication, the reason I love that is because all communication, the way I see it, that's effectual of this deeper stuff. So this is symptomatic of this. So if we really want to rock communication, whether it's public speaking or negotiation or team dynamics, right? I mean, we can't just tweak the effects. There's more here. And so I kind of take a bottoms up, top down approach. It all works together. Yeah. Wow.
I feel like this is a therapy session. You're like painting me in a mural as you're describing it.
I know. And I feel the same way. I'm like, I feel like I need to trust myself a little bit more. And it's just, because you're constantly just worrying about what other people think all the time.
Yeah.
Like, why?
But
I just gotta stop.
Yeah. And it's hard to get out of that space. Like,
Yeah.
I just went through like a whole promotion process, and I didn't end up getting the promotion, but I got great feedback, but for that moment of time, it was probably like a week or so, maybe longer. I was like, I suck at life. I suck at my job. I suck at everything. Why am I even doing this? Why am I at this company? Do I deserve to be here? But the truth of the matter is, if you take a step back and look at your journey and how you've progressed to chase the things and the titles and the whatever, I sat back and I'm like, you know what? I don't know why I really wanted that though, because that next position is more responsibility, more expectation, more time commitment, more blah, blah. And I'm at a stage in my life where I just got married. I have a family now. I want to focus on personal and not be the workaholic self I used to be. So I'm actually feeling like I'm in the right spot in the role that I'm in. And I don't want to take on more right now, because that would put me in a state of not feeling like I'm in the right place anymore. So it was a blessing.
That clarity.
That clarity is so great.
Yeah. Yes.
And
it took a minute though.
No, because I think you go back to being conditioned. I've seen it all the time, even, LinkedIn and other companies. It's like we're a promotional culture. It's like promotion means better. Promotion means like you're moving up. Promotion means you're worthy. Promotion, that is what it is. And I remember coming across, I got tired of having those conversations. It's almost like, be good at your job, enjoy your craft, you're learning, place value on other things than that thing, that title, that business card, what have you. And it was always eye-opening when I'd run into people kind of similar to your story, because it's almost like a sign of, it's a sign of growth that I'm comfortable where I'm at. Yeah. They're like, I don't want to get promoted. I'm good at what my current job is, and I'm happy and I'm fulfilled. Yeah. And you know what? You're also really great at it.
Yes.
And that's okay.
And for anybody out there that's listening to this right now, just know that's an okay space to be.
It is
okay
definitely
to feel
an
that
okay
way.
space.
Yeah.
And also, I think there's another thing in corporations and companies, they're all different, right? But you're also allowing a company to put that value on you of what your worth is too. Like, why give someone all that authority that you don't deserve that promotion? I'm sorry, but maybe you do. I don't know, but maybe you don't want it.
I might not, but I'm fine with it not.
But there's also that, and you're fine without it. But there's also that value. You have to be careful too of you're putting too much weight on that of someone else's judgment of you.
I mean, there is no freedom when your sense of self is in the conditional paradigm. Because what you're essentially saying is, I need conditions to be a certain way for me to feel enough. But because of the nature of conditions and proof itself, there's always going to be counterproof. There's always going to be counter conditions, which is going to work against you. And so you'll never, ever, ever achieve a sense of genuine peace and freedom in a conditional paradigm where you need these things in order to feel safe.
I have a question for both of you, actually. So you both, like, clearly you have talked about how you had like your aha moment. This is what I need to be focusing on. I'm focusing on feeling, not thinking as much, right? Like, you think about it, you're a smart lady, but you also just went through a career pivot and you decided to take a career break, and you're following your gut at that time, but you also were battling your brain at that time. So how do you navigate that change in thinking to feeling and getting yourself, what we say, comfortable, being uncomfortable, to push yourself forward towards what the feeling is that you know is right deep down?
It's hard.
It's hard.
And I think, this is probably where we need our own session 101 too.
Yeah.
What are you doing for the next couple months? It's because of that conditional paradigm that you just described. It's been the definition of my life for a long time. And I think there's been probably a couple of different points of like, as you're growing in your career, in early career, you're just going along with that conditional paradigm, and that's what you're taught. And then you change a little bit where you become a little bit more intentional in your career, but it's still tied the conditional paradigm. And so now being able to say, guess what? Going with the feeling of like, I'm actually not happy anymore. And realizing, I guess it goes back to the feeling. So check. Yeah. But having the courage to actually go with that and do that and make that decision for yourself and be scared and all the actual true feelings where all the logic doesn't make sense because that's not the path that you think is next for you, or people say that's for you, or all those things.
Or
and
they question you
or they
for
question me, like, what are you
direction?
doing? And I'm like, I don't know. We're creating a movement here called HumanizeHer, and we're creating podcasts. I have no idea what I'm doing, and we're going to do it with a whole bunch of cool people.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't know if it's going to work out. I don't know if it's going to be a success,
that's the magic.
but it feels really, really good.
And that's what life's about.
Yes. It's
What
being
we
happy and
want.
glowing.
I think our primal, we want to feel good.
Yeah.
And I think there's so much magic in the not knowing and knowing that you're creating as you go. And you're just, everything about it feels real and authentic and meaningful. And that to me is the key, is that when you're on the path because it feels meaningful, it's not just activity and it's not just dopamine hits and it's not just, high highs and low lows. There's meaning here. And, it is scary because, you think about it, starting at a young age, we get conditioned away from our internal guidance to follow the formula. I call it the formula, right? And it's the formula placed on us by the proverbial them and they, and we do what we're told and we do what we are told works. So we have all these neural networks in support of this way of navigating. So you get to this point in your life and you're like, okay, go do this that you have no reference for. And by the way, all your automatic behaviors and processes and adaptive behaviors are in support of this. All parts of your system are like,
total reject.
Right? And so it's like, wait, and then it's like, hold on. And so then all the alert, abort goes off in your head. And then this is what I think they mean by the proverbial leap of faith. It's about taking, this is like, it's like, well, what have I got to lose? Yeah. I've just got experience and data to gain. And like, I'm going to get something on the other side of it and I'm going to be better for it. Yeah.
And that's your path as well. I mean, you're betting on yourself, you're betting on your practice, you're betting on this new feeling and new approach. I mean, how are you navigating this for yourself?
It's magic. And I still learn and I'm still working through, I'm at a point where like I need to expand and like everything I've been doing has been working up to get to this point, but to get to the next point, like I need a team and I need like a bigger team and I need things that I don't, it's like, okay. And then feeling into the next phases it's really fun and it's scary. Right. And so I'm doing it. Gosh, I'm spending so much like, okay, is it here? Is it here? Like, and because the last run I was on that took me off path, it's like, okay, noted. That's really helpful data. So I'm feeding that into this stage where I'm at right now, which is, it's fun. It's really fun.
And it's kind of cool too to think about like right now how you're describing the next step for you is the next like a thing, right? The next thing is for you to hire people, but it's with purpose.
Oh yeah.
That's the whole point is you're scaling your impact. It's not because someone told you this is the next step in order to be what you should be.
You need it. You're seeing that it's working and you need this next step, which is a very different approach.
Very different approach. And it's interesting. It's funny when I work with folks and we get super deep in this, coming back home, I don't really say it this way, but I'm going to say it now. It's like really coming back home to your whole and complete, unconditionally whole and complete self, right? And the freedom and the power, not power over, but power with that comes and the clarity and the passion. There's a fear like, well, if I move from the conditional to the unconditional paradigm and I go from a proving paradigm to, this like spacious one, like I'm going to be totally ambitionless and lazy. And I'm like, oh, actually it's the opposite.
Yeah.
It's because you have so much clarity and you have so much passion and you have so much more energy. And what's cool is that everything you're up to has nothing to do with proving self. It's for something bigger, which is meaning, which I think we all crave. Viktor Frankl wrote about it, right?
I love it.
It does not resonate more than what you just said on, I'm working so much harder than I have in my life right now, but it comes from a different place.
Yeah.
Like we're talking all the time, constantly.
All day, every day, all night.
And crew behind the scenes, I know they're like, another text message from Erica,
We jumped on calls at like 1 in the morning and both our husbands are like, what are you doing?
Yeah, it's like Friday, Saturday, but it doesn't feel like work.
It's not work.
It's not. It's a very, but if I was doing it for a different purpose, it would be hell.
Mm-hmm.
And that's when when you fall into this and find, you don't work anymore.
Mm-hmm.
Like everything, it feels like every day is a miracle.
Yeah.
And that is to me, and I want everybody to know this. I want everybody to believe, because this is how we make the world a better place.
I have that song, I Got a Feeling. You know that song? I don't know, it's in my head right now. We're going to sing this.
I was trying to think of the song.
What's that song? You know the song? I got a feeling. Tonight's gonna be a good. And then maybe it's like this day. Like, sorry, we are not singers. This is the karaoke episode. Oh, sorry, she's a singer. You could actually sing.
I sing in the shower. I sing in the car.
Sorry, but you're giving us feeling here. I feel a lot. I feel a lot right now. Thank you. I want to go on to. I don't know. Wow, we just started singing. You should have actually took the mic and started singing.
I did.
Okay.
I moved it and I got in trouble and I had to move it back. I did.
Okay, so about this feeling, and another thing that you're doing is you're not only going to corporations, but you're doing a lot of one-on-one coaching. And I'm just curious because I think about when people are a therapist or a coach, and you're just talking to so many people all the time, and you get to synthesize all this data, all this perspective. You must come to some conclusions on people or just what everybody's going through. I'm just thinking about that data that you're getting. How are you concluding? What insights have you learned? That commonality, and maybe it doesn't have to have commonality, but
there's commonalities for sure. I feel so blessed for this reason. I feel like I've gotten a backstage pass to the human condition. Right, being able to have thousands of conversations with individuals, and what feels like very clear is that everybody wants to feel good, everybody wants to feel meaningful and purposeful, and everybody is afraid of some form of rejection. Now, for those, that's interesting because, like, for my top, leaders that I'll be coaching for that are uber successful, they would laugh in my face if I said, "Oh, I'm not afraid of rejection." And I'm like, "Well, it's not like, but you're afraid of failure."
Mm-hmm.
Oh yeah. Won't let it happen. I'm like, "Well, if you're on an island, does it matter?" Right? So really think about this fear of failure, right? And so people say it's a fear of failure, and I'm like, actually, no, it's not. Because think about it. If you fail, then what happens next? Oh, I'll be seen unfavorably. If I'm seen unfavorably, I'm not part of the group. Not part of the group. That's like rejection. Oh my gosh.
It ties
triggers
back.
Like, right? And so every one of our fears, I mean, unless you're like afraid of a tiger attack or something, or, like.
That sounds scary too.
But here's what's interesting, that environmental safety and social safety are one and the same to the brain, meaning the brain can't tell the difference between a tiger attack and, a colleague throwing you under the bus in a meeting. So the brain is the same. Right. And so it's looking out for these threats in all ways. And so going back to commonalities, all of us are driven by this desire for meaning and feeling good. And all of us have a fear of falling out of favor with others. And it doesn't matter how successful you are. And everyone has some form of limiting beliefs inside. For some people, it's very conscious and they're aware. And for a lot of people, they're not aware, and it's not in the forefront. It lives more in the subconscious, but it drives their life because they're still in a conditional paradigm. And so what I see, I see it so clearly. It's easy for me to be like, oh yeah, like when it comes to life, it's not about me, because what I do know is that every single person is so consumed in their own world that they've made it about, like, they're so consumed in their own worlds. Like, no one's really judging me.
Get over yourself, like we said earlier.
Like, everyone's so consumed in their worlds that, like, no one's really thinking about me. And so I love offering that freedom to other people. I'm like, you think you're in the spotlight, you're actually not. Like, and I say that with love, right? I say that with love, but everyone's so consumed in their own world. You know, my grandma's dying. I got to pick up the kids, you know, this and they're just not thinking of you. So, just the common humanity that just, it's,
and then how do you bring that awareness for someone? I mean, that just takes time. It takes skill. And, you know, how do you break that apart where they're not just thinking in that way all the time? Let's talk about some tools.
Yeah.
We need some tools.
Yeah.
Actually, we can get to that. That would be really, really good.
Absolutely.
If we got problems here, we need some tools.
Okay. So, you know, I there's a handful of tools that I'm like, oh, I could give you, but I'm going to give you the tool of all tools.
Oh.
And this tool is, I mean, it can be applied to everything. And on the other side of this is freedom, joy, clarity, empowerment, action, momentum. It's awesome. Confidence. I love this tool. So kind of taking a step back here, I'll just kind of give you a landscape to consider. What I have realized in all of these conversations that I've had is that for each of us humans, in each moment, each of us is always standing for something. But we're usually not aware of what we're standing for in this moment. So let me say this another way, okay?
Yeah, I got to decode this.
I'm going to say it another way. In each and every moment, each of us holds a primary underlying objective in the moment, but we're often not aware. So let me give you an example. Right now, we're in this conversation, right? Now, if I didn't know what I know, right now, I could ultimately be standing for impressing you both. And that could be my primary underlying objective underneath this conversation. Or I could be standing for you both liking me. And that could be my primary underlying objective underneath everything that's happening. Or I could be standing for getting business. That could be my primary objective underneath this conversation. Or I could be standing for connection and empowerment, because it's out of these conversations that growth happens and things become possible. I know that. And that's what I'm standing for. Follow? Right? Yes.
Yeah. I like it.
So thank you. I love it. Okay.
I love it.
So in each moment, we each are standing for something, but we're usually not aware. And I'll show you how this starts to show up, right? So, you know, you're married. And you know that tiff you might end up in with your husband?
Oh, yeah. It happened a couple days ago. Yeah.
Okay.
Can you give me some tools on that too? That'd be great.
Right here. Here it comes. So your noble self in this tiff that you might be having, this regular one you might be having, your noble self would love to believe that you are standing for harmony. But you're not standing for harmony. You're standing for being right. You're standing for winning. Because if he saw you as right, you'd be in harmony, right?
You would in your head.
Right. And so in these moments, we actually are holding a stance that we don't really intend. And here's another one. Have you ever had to give really hard feedback?
Yeah.
And it was hard. Yeah.
Absolutely.
So here's what's fascinating. Feedback conversations, they're not inherently hard. Difficulty is not an inherent variable in that equation. It's only hard because of this unintentional stance. So check this out. Let's say, Erica, I've got really constructive feedback for you that would really make a difference for you, but it would be like traditionally hard because it's sensitive and it might even be offensive. Now, if it's hard in this moment for me to give this to you, if it's hard, it simply means that in this now moment, I'm standing for something I don't mean to be, and I'm not choosing, and it's not serving either of us. And if I were to be really honest, I'm probably standing for avoiding conflict. I'm probably standing for being liked. I might be standing for protecting you from your feelings. I am not standing for your growth. So
good.
So the way I talk about this stance is this way. It's synonymous. Each of us has a kind of like this spotlight we get to control. But we don't control it because of the way our conscious mind and our survival brain are formulated. So this is fascinating. You want to hear something? Conscious mind, the one that's right here with me following along, that's also tracking the time, that's also thinking of what's happening later, that feels so busy.
Yeah.
That processes 40 bits of information per second. Okay? Subconscious mind, 20 million.
Wow. That's a lot.
So you think we're in control? We're not really in control.
So I thought my mind was very loud all the time. It's like really loud, I guess. Right?
So I say this because remember, the survival brain's trying to keep you alive in every moment. And it's keeping you alive from tiger attacks and all forms of rejection. So that survival brain is going to hijack your spotlight whether you like it or not. And so what it does, it's well-meaning, but unfortunately very misguided, because it's going to shift that spotlight, my safety, my rightness, my image, my likability, my. And so it takes the spotlight and now it shines it on me instead of out there. And the metaphor I've been using recently is like, imagine you're in a car in a dark country dirt road area and there's no lights around and you're driving and the headlights are flashing out. Now imagine, for whatever reason, headlights flip back into the cab, right? What happens? You become paralyzed.
Right.
You can't see, you can't move. So you need them to face out. So this is what's happening for all of us in our moments. So now, public speaking. Nervousness, have you ever been nervous?
We're nervous every time we roll this podcast.
So check this out.
Speak for yourself. I'm just kidding.
Hella nervous.
Yes,
exactly.
always.
So check this out. Nervousness is just a symptom. That in this now moment, your stance just shifted. You didn't do it. Don't be hard on yourself. It happens.
Fear of being judged.
Fear of looking good. No, it's this. You're standing for looking good.
Yeah.
You're standing for proving yourself. You're standing for doing
it's
it
me,
right.
me again.
Right. And so the tool is this. It's recognizing I get to control this. And my power, my freedom, my impact is in harnessing this and claiming an intentional stance. And my job is, and this is a moment by moment practice, by the way, it's claiming the noble, most we-centric, like, no, this is for women's empowerment. This is for a call to action. This is for, I don't know, you decide, but, and the moment you claim that focal point that's out there, all of those resources that we're doing this,
Yeah.
and now you've got eloquence, you've got ingenuity, creativity. In fact, this is executive presence.
Yeah.
When you are so lined up behind the noble thing and there is no awareness back on self.
Yeah.
And that's where you become compelling and influential. So we practice this in our moments. So this applies to parenting, right? It applies to my marriage. It applies to hard conversations. It applies to prioritization. What am I standing for in this moment? And so the way I do it, it's a 4-step process. So step number 1, you got to care way more about how you feel, because how you feel is telling you where your focus is.
Yeah.
You can't catch your thoughts. Your thoughts are crazy. Everybody's are. But what I like about feeling is it's binary. You either feel effective or you don't. You feel good or you don't. You feel confident or you don't. Right? So step 1, you care. Step 2, catch when you're not feeling your full potential. Step 3, just identify, oh, what must I be standing for? Oh, I'm standing for being right. I'm standing for winning. I'm standing for looking good. Which immediately ushers you to step 4, which is, what's this about? It's about their growth. It's about mutual success. It's about love. It's about
building community.
Right. Yeah. Like I just did this with my kids not long ago. Like it was a disciplinary moment. It's like, I might find myself falling into standing for principle instead of standing for their learning. Right. And it's like, what a totally different conversation.
I'm just soaking in what you're saying and these tools, because they apply in so many ways. Everything.
Agreed.
Everything.
That's why I mean,
even your children.
Yeah,
no, it is. It's true. And it's also even, especially children, it's like what you just said right now, by principle. It's like, well, no, this is how you parent, and this is right, and this is wrong. And it's like, are they growing in this moment? And so what? You know, this thing that you're thinking about, it doesn't matter. So what? So this is the thing that you should be focusing on: how they're learning, how they're growing, how they're becoming more independent, all those other things. So I just love how you just articulated all of that. It's just resonating so much. And I think even this thing that we're doing now and figuring out, like, there's so much to, unfold and discover and all this, but we need to stay focused on what it is that we're going for and do that rather than all the other stuff. It's beautiful. I think you just gave us a massive gift.
Yeah.
And we need to write it down, because you forget, because you also said in the moment, because you could talk about it now, but when you're in the moment, and when you're in the thick of it, are you doing those things and applying those tools that you just shared?
Totally. And I'll tell you,
I don't know how do you is it in your pocket and you put it in my
So here's my, when you get off the ground with this, I always recommend that people look at their calendar, and for the anxiety provoking or the high stakes, or even for the important meetings on your calendar, have a little pop-up reminder right before the meeting, like minutes before, just saying, what will you stand for?
That's good.
And you collect your energy. And then you might have an ever-present reminder of a Post-it note on your monitor as you're going through that meeting. Now, in my case, like I've been practicing this for so long, it's just a part of my DNA. However, because my survival brain is strong too, and I will get pulled, but because I'm so sensitive to how I feel, like I've been in certain meetings, I had to pull myself back 60 plus times in that 1 hour versus like, I do it once before I get on stage and I'm cool, right? Or I'm just so clued into the mission of the whatever it is, I don't even need to do it because I'm already there. So that's the thing about like step 1, care about how you feel. Step 2, catch. Now, if you're feeling great, just keep going, right? That's the best part. But this is a moment by moment practice completely based upon how you feel. But here's the thing, it requires a fundamental decision that you just have to make right here, right now. You ready for it? You just have to decide you're done feeling crappy. Period. Just done.
You done?
I'm done.
Okay, good.
Oh my
done
goodness.
feeling crappy. Yes.
Oh, Amy, this was so beneficial. It was so valuable to all of us and also our listeners, who is the main focus of what we're doing. So this is where this is where we get to scale all and these tools. And so just thank you so much. Thank you for your wisdom. Thank you for your book. Thank you for coming here. Thank you, thank you, thank you.
And for your coaching. I mean, I can't wait for my next therapy session. Like I just got that in, But like you offer such valuable information and tools for people to use to grow in all areas, professionally, personally, just in life. And it's beautiful.
I think we all had a session. Everyone in this behind the scenes, you all agree? Yeah, we're all feeling better.
Hey, we're doing the work. Like this is how we make the world a better place, right? This is raising that resonance of vibration. Yeah, it is. It is. And though it's funny though, because work has a weird connotation, right? And I say it's focus. It's nourishing focus that has incredible payoff. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So check out her book, Living on Purpose.
Yes.
For sure.
Yes.
And before we close, we have to take a moment and do what we always do.
Okay.
Which is any women who want to get a shout out and pay it forward
you
have a moment, you have the mic and
oh my gosh.
Might as well.
I love it because every guest says, I have a long list. Yeah. I have so many.
I've got a couple. So Adrienne Whitmore was one of my first, one of my amazing bosses at Sun Microsystems. And she's helped make me who I am today. As Sarah Marshall, I just adore her. So I had to give a big shout out to Sarah Marshall. Christine Carlson, who I mentioned. She's, again, very instrumental. You know who hit me? I think you know them. Chrissy.
Oh.
Chrissy Rothman. You know what? Her and Kim Nickel.
She's great.
We were all together at that era of coaching, and they make me better. Yeah. And I just want to let them know that. I haven't told them that lately, but I very much appreciate it.
Going to hear it now.
Yeah?
All right. Thank you.
Thank you.
Awesome. That's a wrap.
Biggest gratitude to thank those that are behind the scenes.
Alex Sully, our creative director and producer. Becky Davis, our talented director of photography. Kristen West, our brilliant brand and design expert.
And of course, thanks to all of you for making our vision of Humanize Her come to life.